Commander HFY stared at the holographic display with 4 of his eyes while the other 2 monitored his subordinates' reactions. The intelligence briefing from the Galactic Council's military database painted a picture that made even his battle-hardened exoskeleton shiver. These humans, he clicked his mandibles thoughtfully, they are not like the other species we've encountered. His aide, Lieutenant Vorth, shifted nervously on his 6 legs. The young Crothan had never seen actual combat, but he'd studied every major conflict in the galaxy's recorded history. Sir, their military structure seems primitive. They still use projectile weapons and chemical explosives. HFY's laugh was a harsh chittering sound that echoed through the command chamber. Primitive? Lieutenant, that assessment nearly cost us the Third Sector War. He gestured toward the hologram showing human soldiers in strange, mottled uniforms moving through what appeared to be a toxic swamp. Watch this footage from Kepler 442b. The recording began playing, showing the aftermath of what the humans called the Battle of Crimson Marsh. Bodies of hegemony troops were scattered across the battlefield, their advanced energy weapons lying useless in the acidic mud. But there were no human casualties visible. Where are the human dead? Vorth asked, his antenna twitching with confusion. That's exactly what General Korthak asked before he ordered his entire division to hunt down what he assumed was a small human scouting party. HFY paused the recording. The humans call these particular soldiers Navy SEALs. They had been operating behind enemy lines for 17 standard days. 17 days, Lieutenant, in an environment that would kill most species within hours. The hologram shifted to show tactical analysis data. Environmental readings scrolled past showing lethal radiation levels, atmospheric toxicity that could dissolve hegemony armor, and gravitational fluctuations that made normal movement impossible. Sir, Vorth's voice was barely a whisper, how did they survive? They didn't just survive, they thrived. HFY advanced the recording to show thermal imaging of the marsh. These 6 humans eliminated an entire hegemony forward operating base. 200 of our most elite warriors, armed with the finest technology the Empire could provide. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. The humans did it with projectile weapons, improvised explosives, and what their reports classify as tactical creativity. The recording showed the humans emerging from the marsh like creatures born from nightmare. Their faces were painted with mud and plant matter, making them appear more like predatory beasts than sentient beings. They moved with a fluid precision that seemed to defy the hostile environment around them. Lieutenant Vorth watched as one of the humans placed a crude device against the base's power generator. The explosion that followed wasn't just destructive, it was strategic. The electromagnetic pulse disabled every piece of advanced technology within a 2-kilometer radius, leveling the playing field between the technologically superior hegemony forces and the seemingly primitive humans. But, sir, surely our warriors could adapt to their tactics? HFY's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement or dread. That's what Admiral Treshka thought when she encountered the humans they called Marine Force Recon. A new hologram materialized, showing an asteroid mining facility. The humans had been hired as security consultants. Just 12 of them, protecting a mining operation on asteroid TX 7739. The asteroid's surface was a maze of industrial equipment and mining tunnels. It looked like any other commercial operation in the outer systems, hardly the type of place one would expect a legendary battle. Treshka brought a full battle cruiser and 300 shock troopers. The asteroid had no shields, no defensive weapons, no military installations of any kind. HFY's voice took on a grim tone. It should have been a simple raid. The tactical display showed the hegemony forces landing on the asteroid's surface in perfect formation. Their powered armor gleamed under the distant star's light, and their plasma rifles charged with deadly energy. The assault began with textbook precision. For the first 10 minutes, everything went according to plan. The hegemony troops advanced methodically through the mining complex, their superior technology easily overwhelming the civilian workers who fled deeper into the tunnels. The 12 human marines seemed to have vanished entirely. Where did the humans go? Vorth asked, studying the display intently. Everywhere, HFY replied ominously. And nowhere.
Watch. The first sign of resistance came from an unexpected direction.
The mining equipment began malfunctioning, but not randomly. Drilling rigs that had been pointing harmlessly at rock faces suddenly swiveled toward hegemony positions. Conveyor belts reversed direction, sending tons of processed ore tumbling toward advancing troops.
Ventilation systems that should have been circulating breathable atmosphere instead began pumping industrial solvents into tactical positions. They turned the entire asteroid into a weapon, Vorth breathed in amazement. The Force Recon Marines knew that they couldn't match the hegemony's firepower directly, Zexhai explained. So they changed the rules of engagement entirely. They used the environment itself as their ally.
The recording showed hegemony soldiers struggling to maintain formation as the very ground beneath their feet became unreliable. Mining tunnels that had seemed empty suddenly erupted with precisely placed explosive charges, not meant to kill but to disorient and separate the attacking force into smaller, more manageable groups.
Then, the humans struck.
They appeared from impossible places, emerging from ventilation shafts that seemed too small to accommodate a sentient being, rising from ore processing vats that should have been lethal to organic life, materializing from shadows in areas that the hegemony sensors had repeatedly scanned and declared clear.
How did they hide from our sensor arrays? Vorth asked, his scientific training struggling to process what he was seeing. They didn't hide from the sensors, Zexhai replied grimly.
They became part of the environment the sensors were designed to ignore.
Industrial equipment, mining debris, even the asteroid's natural magnetic field. The humans somehow masked their biosignatures by mimicking the patterns of inanimate objects. The battle that followed defied every conventional understanding of tactical warfare. The humans never engaged in direct confrontation. Instead, they struck from concealment, used the environment to multiply their effectiveness, and vanished before the hegemony could mount a counterattack.
One Marine, his face covered with a strange mesh that distorted his features, single-handedly disabled an entire squad by manipulating the asteroid's artificial gravity generators. The hegemony soldiers found themselves floating helplessly while the human moved through the altered gravity field as if he had been born to it. Another Marine used the mining facility's communication system to feed false information to the hegemony forces, sending squads into carefully prepared ambush points or directing them away from their objectives entirely. The psychological warfare was as devastating as any physical attack. By the end of the engagement, Zexhai continued, Admiral Treshka had lost 60% of her assault force. The survivors were so demoralized that they refused to participate in further operations against human targets.
What happened to the humans?
Vorth asked.
All 12 survived without a single serious injury.
They continued their security duties as if nothing had happened. Zexhai paused the recording on an image of the Marines standing calmly among the wreckage of the hegemony assault. The mining operation resumed normal activities the next day.
The young lieutenant's antenna drooped as he processed the information. Sir, if these humans are so formidable, why don't they simply conquer the galaxy themselves? Zexhai's laugh was bitter.
Because they don't think like conquerors, Lieutenant.
They think like something else entirely.
He brought up a new file, this one marked with the highest security classifications.
Have you ever heard of the human unit they call Delta Force?
The hologram showed what appeared to be a diplomatic reception on the neutral world of Harmony Station. Elegantly dressed beings from dozens of species mingled in the grand ballroom, discussing trade agreements and territorial disputes with the civilized discourse expected at such gatherings. This was the Pentarch Peace Summit, Zexhai explained. Representatives from every major power in the galaxy gathered to negotiate the end of the spiral arm conflicts.
The humans sent a small diplomatic delegation, as expected.
The image focused on a group of humans in formal attire, looking no different from any other diplomatic party. They smiled politely, made small talk, and seemed completely unremarkable among the assembled galactic elite. Unknown to the other participants, Zexhai continued, intelligence services from the hegemony, the Zorati Empire, and the Crystalline Confederacy had all planted assassination teams at the summit. Each faction intended to eliminate the leadership of their rivals and establish dominance over the galactic political structure. Vorth studied the peaceful scene with new eyes. How many assassins were there? 47 professional killers, armed with the most advanced stealth technology available. Weapons that could pierce any known defensive field, poisons that could kill any carbon-based lifeform, explosives that could level the entire station.
Zexai's voice carried a note of professional respect.
Each assassination team represented the pinnacle of their respective civilization's military capability. The recording showed the summit proceeding normally for several hours. Delegates gave speeches, agreements were signed, and the future of galactic civilization seemed bright with possibility.
Then, everything changed.
At 23:47 station time, the first assassination attempt was scheduled to commence. The target was Chancellor Viridian of the Crystalline Confederacy. The hologram zoomed in on an elegant crystal being discussing mining rights with a hegemony trade official. The Zorati had positioned a sniper in the station's upper observation deck. The image showed a Zorati operative in advanced camouflage armor, his weapon trained on the Chancellor through what should have been an undetectable scope. His finger began to tighten on the trigger. Then, he simply stopped.
What happened?
Vorth asked, leaning forward to study the frozen figure. The sniper's weapon malfunctioned at the critical moment. The targeting system began displaying error messages that made no technical sense. When he attempted to fire manually, the rifle's power cell was mysteriously depleted.
Zexai smiled grimly.
Investigation later revealed that someone had accessed the weapon's internal systems and installed a sophisticated virus that activated at the precise moment the sniper attempted to fire. The recording continued, showing similar scenes throughout the station. Assassins found their equipment mysteriously malfunctioning, their routes of attack blocked by unexpected maintenance activities, their carefully planned escapes routes suddenly crowded with station security conducting routine patrols. By dawn the next day, every single assassination plot had failed, Zexai reported. Not one shot was fired, not one drop of poison administered, not one explosive device detonated successfully.
But, how?
Vorth was clearly struggling to understand.
Who could have anticipated and countered every possible threat? Zexai highlighted the human delegation in the recording. Delta Force doesn't just consist of soldiers, Lieutenant.
They recruit individuals with capabilities that span the entire spectrum of warfare: electronic warfare specialists, psychological operations experts, intelligence analysts, and tactical planners who can think 17 steps ahead of their opponents.
The hologram showed the aftermath of the summit.
One by one, the would-be assassins found themselves in custody, their weapons and equipment confiscated, their identities exposed to galactic security services. But there was no violence, no dramatic confrontations, no evidence of military action. The humans accomplished all of this without firing a single shot, Zexai noted.
They simply knew. They anticipated every move, countered every strategy, neutralized every threat before it could materialize.
Sir, Vorth said slowly, are you suggesting that the humans somehow identified and stopped 47 professional assassins without any of us realizing what was happening?
I'm not suggesting it, Lieutenant. I'm telling you it's exactly what happened.
Zexai brought up the final image from the summit, the human delegation saying polite goodbyes to their fellow diplomats, looking for all the world like minor functionaries who had attended a routine political gathering.
And the most terrifying part?
They did it so smoothly that most of the delegates never realized their lives had been in danger.
The command chamber fell silent as the implications sank in.
These humans didn't just win battles through superior firepower or advanced technology.
They operated on a level of tactical and strategic thinking that made conventional military doctrine obsolete.
Commander, Vortha's voice was barely audible. What are you trying to tell me?
Zexai turned all 6 eyes toward his young aide. I'm telling you that we've been thinking about the humans incorrectly from the very beginning.
We see their primitive weapons and assume they're technologically backward. We observe their small numbers and assume they're militarily weak.
We study their political structure and assume they're strategically naive.
He gestured toward the collection of recordings and data files surrounding them.
But the truth is far more dangerous than anything we've imagined.
The humans don't fight wars the way we do because they've evolved beyond our understanding of warfare itself. The holographic display shifted one final time, showing a simple message that had been transmitted from human space to the Galactic Council following the events at Harmony Station. It consisted of just 7 words, but those words had fundamentally changed how every military strategist in the galaxy viewed the human threat. "Thank you for the interesting training exercise." Vorth stared at the message, his mind struggling to process its implications.
They knew. They knew everything from the beginning. And they let it happen anyway, Zexhai confirmed. Because stopping 47 assassination attempts simultaneously was apparently just practice for them. The young lieutenant's exoskeleton had lost all color. "Sir, what does this mean for our own military planning?" Commander Zexhai looked out at the stars visible through the command chamber's viewing ports, each one representing worlds where human influence was quietly, inexorably growing.
"It means, Lieutenant, that we need to fundamentally reconsider what we think we know about warfare, strategy, and survival in a galaxy where humans exist." The recording devices clicked off, leaving only the soft hum of the ship's systems and the weight of a terrible new understanding. Somewhere out there among the stars, human soldiers were training, planning, and preparing for conflicts that other species couldn't even imagine yet. And the most frightening part of all was that they were probably smiling while they did it. The emergency session of the Galactic Military Council had been called after disturbing reports began filtering in from multiple sectors. Admiral Kathmara of the Valerian fleet adjusted her bioluminescent patches nervously as she read the classified briefings spread across her command tablet. Each report told the same impossible story: human military units accomplishing objectives that should have been beyond the capabilities of any known species. "The situation has evolved beyond our initial assessments," announced High Marshal Torgak, his massive frame dwarfing the council chamber's podium. The Bruton warrior's scars told stories of 100 battles across the galaxy, but today his voice carried an unfamiliar note of uncertainty. "We are no longer dealing with isolated incidents of human tactical superiority." The holographic display activated, showing a star map of the Outer Rim territories. Red markers indicated recent conflict zones, their distribution forming a pattern that made experienced military minds uncomfortable. 3 weeks ago, pirate fleets from the Shadow Nebula began systematic raids on civilian shipping lanes, Torgak continued. These weren't opportunistic attacks. The pirates had inside information on cargo manifests, security protocols, and shipping schedules. They struck with precision that suggested military-grade intelligence support. Admiral Kathmara's gill slits fluttered with concern. "High Marshal, the Shadow Nebula pirates have plagued commerce for decades. Their raids are nothing new. Their capability level is." Torgak highlighted several attack sites. In the past month, they successfully raided 17 heavily defended convoys, captured 2 orbital processing stations, and established forward operating bases in 3 different star systems. Galactic peacekeeping forces were unable to mount effective countermeasures. The assembled military leaders studied the data with growing alarm. The pirates' recent success rate was unprecedented, their tactical coordination far beyond anything previously demonstrated by criminal organizations. The Peacekeeping Command requested assistance from available human vessels in the region, Torgak said grimly. A single human ship responded to the call. The display zoomed in on a tactical breakdown of what followed. Ship identification codes revealed the responding vessel as UES Persistent, classification listed simply as Special Operations Support. The human ship appeared to be a converted merchant vessel, explained Intelligence Director Vexstar, her multiple arms manipulating holographic controls with practiced efficiency. No visible weapons systems, minimal defensive capabilities, crew complement of just 37 individuals. Admiral Kathmara's bioluminescence flickered skeptically. 37 humans against organized pirate fleets? What could they possibly accomplish? They eliminated the entire pirate operation in 6 days, Vexstar replied quietly. The chamber fell silent. Even the most optimistic military projections had estimated that neutralizing the Shadow Nebula pirates would require a full battle group and months of systematic operations. Impossible, declared General Horthax of the Hegemony Strategic Command. Our intelligence networks would have detected large-scale military action. Energy weapon discharges, explosive detonations, distress signals from pirate vessels. The sensor networks recorded none of these indicators. Vexstar manipulated the display, bringing up sensor logs from monitoring stations throughout the region.
That's correct, General.
There were no conventional signs of warfare.
The first anomaly appeared on day 2 of the human deployment.
Pirates' bases that had been active for years suddenly went silent. No distress calls, no emergency transmissions, no indication of attack or system failure. They simply stopped communicating entirely.
Communication blackouts aren't unusual in pirate operations, noted Admiral Cathmara.
They often maintain radio silence during major operations.
The blackouts were selective, Vexstar corrected.
Pirates' bases continued normal operations in some sectors while going completely silent in others.
The pattern made no tactical sense from a criminal perspective. Day 3 brought reports that made military analysts question their understanding of conventional warfare. Pirate vessels began reporting equipment failures on an unprecedented scale.
Navigation systems displayed false coordinates, weapon targeting computers locked onto empty space, and communication arrays transmitted gibberish instead of coherent messages. Technical failures affect all organizations, General Horthax observed. Poorly maintained criminal vessels would naturally experience higher breakdown rates. The failures were too coordinated, Vexstar replied.
And too specific.
Weapons systems failed during combat engagements but remained perfectly functional during routine operations. Navigation errors only occurred when pirates attempted to reach strategic objectives. Communication breakdowns only affected channels used for coordinating raids. The holographic display showed the progressive collapse of pirate capabilities across the region. What had been a sophisticated criminal network began fragmenting into isolated, ineffective groups.
On day 4, the pattern escalated.
Pirate commanders began reporting infiltration by unknown forces, but their descriptions defied logical analysis. Surveillance equipment showed normal facility operations, security sensors detected no unauthorized personnel, yet critical supplies disappeared and key systems were mysteriously sabotaged.
Stealth technology? Admiral Cathmara suggested. No technology we've encountered, Vexstar confirmed.
Pirate bases increased security protocols, installed additional sensor arrays, and implemented redundant monitoring systems. The infiltrations continued regardless. The most disturbing reports came from pirate personnel who claimed to have encountered the infiltrators directly. Their testimonies were consistent in their impossibility, humans appearing in secured areas without triggering alarms, moving through defensive positions without being detected by multiple species of guards, and vanishing from sealed compartments with no apparent means of escape.
Clearly psychological warfare, General Horthax declared. Fear can make sentient beings perceive threats that don't exist. Day 5 brought an escalation that changed everyone's perspective.
The largest pirate fleet in the Shadow Nebula, commanded by the notorious Captain Vexthal, began broadcasting detailed confessions. Not just admission of recent raids, but complete intelligence on their entire operation, financial backers, corrupt officials who provided inside information, hidden supply caches, and the locations of every secret base in their network.
Why would they voluntarily reveal such damaging information? Admiral Cathmara asked.
Vexstar's expression was deeply troubled. According to the broadcasts, they were trading information for safety. They claimed to be surrounded by human forces and offered complete surrender in exchange for protective custody. But our sensors detected no human fleet movement in that sector, protested General Horthax.
Because there was no fleet, High Marshal Torgak intervened grimly.
Post-incident investigation revealed that Captain Vexthal's flagship was boarded and captured by a team of 12 humans. The council chamber erupted in disbelief. Experienced military leaders struggled to process the implications of such a statement.
12 individuals captured a pirate flagship with a crew of over 400? Admiral Cathmara's bioluminescence had shifted to patterns indicating severe stress.
That's not tactics, that's magic. The humans call this particular unit Army Rangers, Torgak continued. Their operational methods appear to focus on what they termed direct action missions. The holographic display showed the internal layout of Captain Vexthal's flagship, a massive vessel designed for both commerce raiding and fleet combat. Its defensive systems included automated weapon turrets, security checkpoints staffed by professional soldiers, and compartmentalized design that should have made unauthorized movement impossible.
How did 12 humans penetrate such defenses?
Vexstar asked.
They didn't penetrate them, Torgak replied.
They convinced the defenses to stand down voluntarily. The recording began with external surveillance footage of the pirate flagship maintaining standard patrol patterns.
Everything appeared normal until the moment the vessel's own shuttle bay opened to admit a single human transport craft.
The shuttle transmitted proper authorization codes, Vexstar explained. Codes that should have been impossible to obtain without high-level access to pirate communication protocols. The human craft docked normally, following standard procedures. 12 humans in unremarkable uniforms disembarked and were actually escorted through the ship by pirate personnel who appeared to believe they were expected guests. The pirates thought the humans were there for a scheduled meeting, Torgak said grimly. Security footage shows the human team being provided with facility tours, introduced to key personnel, and given access to restricted areas. Admiral Kathmara watched in fascination as the humans spread throughout the massive vessel, always accompanied by cooperative pirate guides. They asked questions about ship operations, examined security procedures, and reviewed tactical capabilities with the enthusiastic assistance of the crew they were infiltrating.
How long did this continue? She asked.
4 hours, Torgak replied. The humans conducted what appeared to be a comprehensive security assessment of the entire vessel.
The pirates not only allowed this, they actively assisted by providing detailed technical information. The transformation occurred gradually.
Pirates who had been helpful guides began experiencing equipment malfunctions. Communication devices stopped working, security clearances were mysteriously revoked, and access codes changed without authorization. The ship's computer systems began recognizing the human team as authorized personnel while treating the actual crew as potential security threats. The humans had somehow gained administrative control of the vessel's operating systems, Vexstar explained. But they accomplished this without accessing any computer terminals or interfacing with the ship's network directly. By hour 6, the situation had completely reversed. The human team occupied the bridge while the original crew found themselves locked out of critical areas. Ship's security systems that had been designed to protect against boarders now prevented the legitimate crew from accessing their own vessel.
Captain Vexthal's final transmission was particularly telling, Torgak noted.
He stated that he was surrendering his ship to forces that had demonstrated capabilities he couldn't understand or counter. The recording showed the aftermath: 12 humans in control of a massive pirate flagship, with a crew of 400 seasoned criminals following their orders without question. The transition had been so smooth that external observers detected nothing unusual until the ship began transmitting surrender offers.
But this was just one incident, General Horthax protested.
Surely the other pirate organizations learned from this experience. They tried, Torgak confirmed. The remaining pirate forces implemented new security protocols specifically designed to counter human infiltration techniques.
Enhanced biometric scanning, psychological evaluation of all personnel, redundant command structures that required multiple authorization for any significant action. Day 6 brought the final demonstration of human capabilities. The upgraded security measures proved entirely ineffective.
The humans calling themselves Green Berets approached the problem differently, Vexstar explained, bringing up new tactical data. Instead of infiltrating pirate organizations directly, they eliminated the conditions that allowed pirate operations to exist. The display showed a complex web of connections: corrupt officials who provided intelligence to pirates, black market suppliers who sold them equipment, financiers who laundered their profits, and safe harbors where they could repair and resupply their vessels. Over the course of 18 hours, every single element of this support network was simultaneously compromised, Torgak reported. Corrupt officials found their illegal activities exposed to law enforcement. Weapons suppliers discovered their inventories had been replaced with defective equipment.
Financial networks detected that their accounts had been accessed and documented by galactic tax authorities.
The systematic destruction of the pirate support infrastructure happened with surgical precision. Criminal organizations that had operated for decades found themselves unable to obtain supplies, communicate with contacts, or access financial resources.
The humans hadn't just attacked the pirates directly, they had eliminated the entire ecosystem that made piracy viable.
By the end of Day 6, the Shadow Nebula pirate fleets had effectively ceased to exist, Torgak concluded. Not through military defeat, but through what the humans term environmental conditioning. They made it impossible for criminal organizations to function in that region of space.
Admiral Kethmara's bioluminescent patterns had settled into deep blue, indicating profound contemplation.
Hi Marshal, are you suggesting that 37 humans accomplished what our military strategists estimated would require months of systematic operations by thousands of personnel?
I'm not suggesting it, Admiral. I'm documenting it. Torgak gestured toward the mountain of evidence surrounding them. And this is just one example. Intelligence Director Vextar activated new displays showing similar incidents across the galaxy. In every case, human military units had achieved objectives through methods that defied conventional military understanding. The pattern is consistent, she reported. Human special forces don't just win battles, they redefine the entire context in which conflicts occur. They operate on strategic levels that make traditional tactical responses irrelevant.
General Horthax studied the data with growing unease.
Director, what are the implications for our own military planning?
Vextar's multiple arms gestured helplessly. General, our existing doctrine assumes that conflicts will follow predictable patterns, opposing forces will engage using similar weapons and tactics, victories will be achieved through superior numbers or technology, and defeated enemies will respond according to established behavioral models. She highlighted human operational methods in the holographic display. Human special forces violate every one of these assumptions. They use environmental factors as force multipliers, they achieve victory through methods that don't register on our conflict detection systems, and they leave defeated enemies so thoroughly neutralized that traditional recovery becomes impossible.
The implications slowly sank in among the assembled military leaders.
They had spent careers mastering warfare as they understood it, only to discover that their understanding itself was fundamentally limited.
High Marshal, Admiral Kethmara said slowly, what you're describing isn't just military superiority. It's a completely different approach to conflict resolution. Torgak's expression was grim.
And that, Admiral, is exactly why even our most elite units have standing orders to avoid direct confrontation with human special forces.
We're not just outgunned or outmaneuvered.
We're playing an entirely different game, and we don't even understand the rules. The council chamber fell silent as each member contemplated the terrifying reality of operating in a galaxy where humans existed. Somewhere among the stars, small teams of human soldiers were quietly reshaping the balance of power through methods that made conventional military responses obsolete. And the truly frightening part was that these demonstrations of capability were probably just what humans were willing to let other species observe. Dr. Yithmora's research facility deep within the crystalline academic nexus hummed with the quiet efficiency of advanced xenobiology laboratories. As the galaxy's leading expert on combat psychology and species-specific warfare adaptations, she had spent decades studying how different civilizations approached conflict. Today, her research had taken an unexpected and disturbing turn. The psychological profiles don't make sense, she muttered to her research assistant, a young hegemony scholar named Vectal. Her crystalline structure flickered with patterns of intense concentration as she reviewed data streams from multiple sources. Vectal's bioluminescent patches dimmed with confusion.
Professor, could you elaborate on the inconsistency? Dr. Yithmora gestured toward the massive holographic displays surrounding her laboratory.
Every species we've studied follows predictable psychological patterns during warfare. The Bruton become more aggressive under stress, amplifying their natural predatory instincts.
The Valerian develop enhanced defensive behaviors, prioritizing protection of their social units.
The Crothan exhibit increased hierarchical structuring, creating more rigid command patterns. She highlighted a section of data showing human military units under extreme stress conditions.
But humans become something else entirely. The research began 3 months earlier when Dr. Yithmora received unprecedented access to battlefield recordings from the recent Terminus sector crisis. An unknown alien force had emerged from the galactic void, attacking civilian targets with technology that rendered conventional defenses useless. The invaders, dubbed the Devourers by galactic media, seemed intent on systematic extermination of all organic life.
The initial attacks were devastating, Dr. Yithmora explained, calling up tactical recordings from the first encounters. The Devourers possessed adaptive shielding that nullified energy weapons, regenerative hull technology that absorbed kinetic impacts, and deployment strategies that bypassed conventional defensive positions. The recordings showed the horrible efficiency of the Devourer assault. Entire colonies vanished within hours, their populations either killed or taken for unknown purposes. Galactic Defense Force fleets that had maintained peace for centuries were destroyed with casual ease. Standard military responses proved completely ineffective, Vectal observed, studying the tactical analyses. Our best estimates suggested that stopping the Devourer advance would require a coordinated effort from all major galactic powers.
Dr. Yithmora's crystalline form shifted to darker hues. The humans disagreed with that assessment. The holographic display changed to show a single human vessel approaching the Devourer advance fleet.
Ship identification codes marked it as UES determination, with crew complement listing that made Dr. Yithmora question the accuracy of human record-keeping.
43 personnel, she said incredulously. The human response to an existential threat to galactic civilization was a single ship with 43 people aboard. Vectal's bioluminescence flickered with disbelief. Surely that was just the advance scout for a larger human fleet?
No, Dr. Yithmora replied grimly.
That was the entire human response.
And the crew manifest listed them as members of something called DevCrew. The recording began with what appeared to be a standard diplomatic approach. The human vessel transmitted universal greeting protocols and requested communication with Devourer leadership. For any other species, this would have been either a peaceful overture or a delaying tactic while reinforcements arrived. The Devourers responded as they had to every previous contact attempt, by opening fire with weapons that had previously proven capable of annihilating much larger vessels.
Watch what happens next, Dr. Yithmora instructed. The human ship should have been vaporized instantly. Instead, something impossible occurred.
The Devourer weapons struck their target, but the energy simply redirected. Instead of destroying the human vessel, the alien weapons began systematically dismantling nearby asteroid formations.
How? Vectal asked in wonder.
The humans had somehow modified their ship's hull to function as a massive electromagnetic lens, Dr. Yithmora explained. Instead of absorbing or deflecting the Devourer weapons, they focused and redirected them with surgical precision. The tactical display showed the results. Asteroid debris, guided by precisely controlled weapon impacts, began striking Devourer vessels with devastating effect. The aliens found themselves under attack by their own firepower, amplified and directed by human engineering. But that's just clever technology, Vectal protested. Ingenious, certainly, but not unprecedented. Dr. Yithmora's form shifted to deep purple, indicating profound unease. The technology was just the beginning. Watch the behavioral analysis. The psychological monitoring data painted a picture that challenged everything Dr. Yithmora thought she knew about combat stress responses. As the engagement intensified, the human crew's stress indicators remained remarkably stable. Heart rates elevated slightly, adrenaline production increased within normal parameters, but there were none of the psychological markers associated with fear, panic, or desperation. They were enjoying themselves, Dr. Yithmora said quietly. The ship's internal communication channels revealed conversations that seemed to come from an entirely different species. Human voices discussed tactical options with the casual tone typically reserved for recreational activities. They shared technical observations about Devourer capabilities with the enthusiasm of researchers studying fascinating new phenomena. Contact bearing 27 Mark 15, came one recorded voice. Looks like they're trying that phase shifter trick again. Copy that. Adjusting deflection array to compensate. This is actually pretty interesting. Vectal stared at the psychological readouts in amazement. They're treating mortal combat like an intellectual puzzle.
It gets worse, Dr. Yithmora replied, advancing the recording. As the battle progressed, the humans began implementing increasingly creative solutions to the Devourer threat. When the aliens adapted their weapons to counter the redirection technique, the humans reconfigured their ship systems to generate what they casually referred to as gravitational anomalies. The Devourer fleet suddenly found itself caught in localized spacetime distortions that made coordinated movement impossible. Ships that had maintained perfect formation were suddenly scattered across multiple dimensions of distorted space. The humans were manipulating gravity as a tactical weapon, Dr. Yithmora explained. But, according to our conversation monitoring, they developed this capability during the battle itself. Developed it? Vectal's bioluminescence had shifted to patterns of severe confusion. You mean they invented faster-than-light gravitational manipulation while under fire? The technical discussions are available if you want to review them, Dr. Yithmora offered grimly. They sound like engineers solving routine maintenance problems. The recording continued with escalating impossibilities. When the Devourers deployed their adaptive shielding technology, the humans responded by creating weapons that attacked the shielding systems directly, turning defensive measures into vulnerabilities. When the aliens attempted to overwhelm the human ship with numerical superiority, the humans somehow convinced the Devourer vessels to attack each other. How did they manage that? Vectal asked. According to the technical logs, they hacked into the Devourer communication networks and began providing tactical advice, Dr. Yithmora replied. Advice that happened to result in friendly fire incidents. But that would require understanding alien technology they'd never encountered before. The humans call it reverse engineering, Dr. Yithmora explained. They apparently analyzed Devourer systems by studying how those systems responded to various stimuli, then developed countermeasures based on their observations. The battle reached its conclusion when the humans implemented what their records described as environmental conditioning. Instead of destroying the remaining Devourer vessels directly, they created conditions that made continued aggression impossible. They used controlled gravitational fields to trap the alien fleet in a stable orbital pattern around a nearby star, Dr. Yithmora explained. The Devourers weren't destroyed, but they also couldn't maneuver effectively enough to threaten anyone. Vectal studied the final tactical display showing dozens of technologically superior alien vessels effectively neutralized by a single human ship. What happened to the Devourer crews? The humans opened communication channels and began what they termed cultural exchange discussions, Dr. Yithmora replied. Within 6 hours, the Devourers had not only agreed to cease hostilities but had requested permission to establish diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council. They convinced a genocidal alien force to become peaceful through conversation? The psychological analysis of those conversations is what really disturbs me, Dr. Yithmora admitted, bringing up new data streams. The humans didn't threaten, intimidate, or coerce the Devourers. They simply understood them. The communication logs revealed discussions that seemed to come from entirely different context. Instead of victory negotiations between enemies, the conversations resembled exchanges between researchers sharing interesting discoveries. Your adaptive shielding technology is fascinating, came one human voice on the recording. We'd love to understand the theoretical framework behind phase variance energy distribution. Your gravitational manipulation capabilities exceed our projections by significant factors, responded a Devourer communication. Educational exchange regarding spatial distortion mathematics would be valuable. Within hours, the two forces that had been engaged in mortal combat were collaborating on joint research projects. The humans somehow convinced a species dedicated to organic extinction that scientific cooperation was more interesting than warfare, Dr. Yithmora observed. Vectal's bioluminescent patterns had shifted to indicate cognitive overload. Professor, what you're describing isn't military victory. It's something else entirely. That's exactly my conclusion, Dr. Yithmora confirmed. But it gets more complicated. She activated new data streams showing follow-up investigations into the incident. Galactic Intelligence Services had conducted extensive interviews with both human and Devourer personnel, trying to understand how such a dramatic transformation had occurred.
The interviews revealed that the humans had developed detailed psychological profiles of the devourers during combat, Dr. Yithmorat explained. They understood alien motivations well enough to predict behavior patterns and emotional responses. How could they analyze an unknown species so quickly? According to the human team leader, they applied something called adaptive behavioral modeling, Dr. Yithmorat replied. They observed how the devourers responded to various stimuli, identified underlying psychological drivers, and then crafted approaches that addressed those drivers constructively. The implications slowly dawned on Vectal. They turned warfare into psychology. More than that, Dr. Yithmorat corrected. They demonstrated that warfare itself is just one possible approach to conflict resolution, and not necessarily the most effective one. The holographic displays showed the current status of the former Devourer fleet. Instead of being imprisoned or destroyed, the alien vessels had been integrated into a joint research project studying advanced propulsion technologies. Former enemies now worked together developing capabilities that benefited both civilizations. But surely this was an isolated incident, Vectal protested. One exceptionally skilled human unit couldn't represent the entire species. Dr. Yithmorat's crystalline structure darkened to deep amber. That's what I thought until I received the classified reports from Galactic Intelligence. New data streams activated, showing similar incidents across the galaxy. In system after system, human military units designated as special operations had encountered seemingly impossible scenarios and resolved them through methods that defied conventional military understanding. These humans, calling themselves Air Force Pararescue, were deployed to evacuate civilians from a planet experiencing gravitational collapse, Dr. Yithmorat reported. Instead of conducting standard evacuation procedures, they somehow stabilized the planet's gravitational field and made evacuation unnecessary. They stopped a planetary collapse? Vectal's voice was barely audible. According to their mission reports, they improvised a solution using available resources, Dr. Yithmorat replied. The available resources apparently included the planet's magnetic field, solar radiation from the system's primary star, and what they described as creative application of orbital mechanics. The recordings showed human personnel in environmental suits working calmly in conditions that should have killed any organic being. They moved through gravitational distortions that tore apart space itself, seemingly unaffected by forces that were literally reshaping reality around them. How is that possible? Vectal asked. The humans explain it in terms of adaptive mission parameters, Dr. Yithmorat said. When standard procedures prove inadequate, they develop new procedures in real time. Another incident report appeared, showing a human unit called Marine Raiders resolving a hostage crisis in the Spiral Arms. Terrorists had captured a space station with 10,000 civilians aboard, threatening to detonate antimatter charges if their demands weren't met. Standard negotiation protocols failed, Dr. Yithmorat explained. The terrorists were fanatical extremists with no interest in compromise. Military assault would have resulted in massive civilian casualties. The situation appeared hopeless. The human response defied every principle of crisis management. Instead of negotiating with the terrorists or planning a rescue operation, the Marine Raiders somehow convinced the hostages to rescue themselves. They turned the civilian population into an effective resistance movement, Dr. Yithmorat reported incredulously. 10,000 people with no military training successfully neutralized heavily armed terrorists while suffering minimal casualties. How? According to the mission logs, the humans provided what they called tactical guidance and motivational support, Dr. Yithmorat replied. They somehow communicated with the hostages without the terrorists detecting the communication, provided instruction in improvised weapons and tactics, and coordinated a simultaneous uprising that overwhelmed the extremist forces. Vectal studied the tactical analysis with growing amazement. They turned ordinary civilians into soldiers? They revealed that ordinary civilians were already soldiers, Dr. Yithmorat corrected. They just needed someone to show them how. The pattern continued across dozens of incident reports. Human special operations units consistently achieved impossible objectives through methods that seemed to operate outside conventional reality. They didn't just win battles, they changed the fundamental nature of the conflicts they encountered. Professor, Vectal said slowly,
What are you concluding from this research?
Dr. Ythmora's crystalline structure shifted to colors that had no equivalent in any known emotional spectrum. I'm concluding that we've been fundamentally wrong about the nature of warfare, conflict resolution, and, possibly, reality itself.
She gestured toward the overwhelming mass of data surrounding them.
Every other species in the galaxy approaches problems within the constraints of established possibilities. We see obstacles and work around them, limitations and adapt to them, impossibilities and accept them.
And humans?
Humans see obstacles and remove them, limitations and transcend them, impossibilities and prove them wrong, Dr. Ythmora replied.
They don't just think outside conventional frameworks, they exist outside them.
The implications hung in the air like a physical presence. Somewhere among the stars, small teams of human soldiers were quietly demonstrating that the universe itself was apparently more flexible than anyone had previously imagined.
Professor, Vectal whispered, what does this mean for the rest of us?
Dr. Ythmora looked out at the star field visible through her laboratory's viewing ports, each point of light representing worlds where human influence was quietly expanding the boundaries of the possible. It means, she said softly, that we're living in a universe that's far more interesting and far more dangerous than we ever suspected. And the most terrifying part is that the humans probably consider all of this routine.